Across all of the world's oceans and seas, from the high Arctic to the tropical waters of the equator, you have a chance of seeing a killer whale, the largest species of dolphin on our planet. That's right, these graceful black and white giants are not in fact true whales, but members of the Delphinidae, or oceanic dolphin family. More commonly referred to as the orca, these marine mammals are one of the most intelligent and charismatic animals in the world, and have an incredibly detailed natural history, as well as a complex and often difficult relationship with humans. In today's video, we will be diving into the world's oceans to meet these beloved cetaceans up close, exploring how they survive, hunt, play, socialize, and develop in our vast open and coastal oceans. If you've seen a killer whale, either in the wild or in captivity, you'll know just how impressive they are. The first thing you'll notice about them is that they're enormous, much larger than most other species of dolphin in the world's waters. Male killer whales can typically reach 6 to 8 meters, or 20 to 26 feet in length, while females measure roughly 5 to 7 meters, or 16 to 23 feet. They are enormous apex predators with a wide range of complex feeding habits and hunting methods. Moreover, killer whales are unmistakable animals, wherever they are in the world. Their streamlined black bodies are offset by smooth pale patterns on the lower jaw and underside, with striking patches of pearly white behind the eye. Orcas living in different parts of the world tend to vary in size and appearance. In Antarctica alone, 5 distinct types are recognized, which include orcas with lighter patches on their backs, races of smaller individuals, and individuals with diminished white eye patches. The Latin name of the killer whale is Orcinus orca, and is the only member of its genus. Their wider family are the delphinids, or oceanic dolphins, which contain 35 species in total. Everything from the familiar Atlantic bottlenose dolphin to the peculiar Irrawaddy dolphin can be found within this family, which are all members of the wider order Cetacea, containing all dolphins, as well as the toothed and baleen whales. Orcas themselves are extremely complex taxonomically speaking, and while there are no recognized subspecies, there may be a wide range of races that can be found in particular parts of the world. The IUCN, an international organization that acts as the authority on the conservation status of our planet's animal species, has said that killer whale taxonomy is in need of a review, so it may be that Orcinus orca could be split up into several subspecies, or even individual species, in the coming years when a review takes place. Distinct species of orca have actually already been proposed: Orcinus ater and Orcinus rectipinus, the former being a specifically Eastern North American group, and the latter being more globally spread. As it stands, these have not been made official, but watch this space. Killer whales, as mentioned at the start of this video, are extremely widespread across our world's oceans. Such a widespread animal, especially one that can freely travel between the unmonitored oceans of our planet, is difficult to pin down and assign a range to for certain, but orcas are known to inhabit all of the world's oceans to some extent. They seem to prefer waters at higher latitudes and are more commonly seen by humans in the northern hemisphere. As a result, researchers working on understanding killer whales tend to situate themselves at orca hotspots, namely off the coast of Iceland, Norway, Alaska, and Canada, but there are several key regions in the south where they seem to congregate. Argentina's Valdez Peninsula is favoured, as are the waters surrounding New Zealand, and the Crozet Islands in the southern Indian Ocean, relatively close to Antarctica. Some killer whales will even periodically venture inland to hunt, and have been spotted in river systems. The Fraser River in Canada and the Horikawa River in Japan are just 2 examples. But the farthest an orca has been recorded travelling inland is 100 miles into the Columbia River in America's Pacific Northwest region. The world population of killer whales is also something that can be particularly hard to monitor given the widespread nature of these animals and the distances they are capable of traveling, but tracked orcas have reappeared in the same locations year on year. At a bare minimum, there may be as many as 50,000 killer whales in our world's waters, with the biggest concentration found in the Antarctic. Although they are more reliably sighted by humans in the northern hemisphere, they seem to be drawn in by the abundance of food in Antarctica, but fewer humans populate the region to sight them. Here, they spend time lurking in the waters underneath the pack ice, where large prey animals can be found. Female killer whales have been recorded as living up to 80 years in the wild, but some are thought to have outlived even this. One individual, lovingly nicknamed Granny, was estimated to have reached the age of 105 before she died, but it is likely she may have been younger. The oldest male on record was believed to be 60 years old, but males will typically live to the age of 29 in the wild. Killer whales are thought to live shorter lives in captivity than they do in the wild, which is a rare occurrence in animals. Orcas typically reach maturity between the ages of 10 and 15 depending on their sex, and carry young in their wombs for up to 18 months. When the single baby, known as a calf, is born, they will be plunged into a dangerous world. Over 50% of orca calves die before they reach 7 months of age, and they won't be weaned from their mother until they're 1 year old. In rare circumstances, infanticide has been spotted in orca pods. There is perhaps no animal in the ocean as well equipped to take down large prey animals than a killer whale. They are the undisputed apex predators of most ocean environments, where they can be found, where they utilize numerous hunting methods to catch various prey. Orcas that are members of different races, or potential future subspecies, have developed their own preferences and hunting skills, and so some of the more niche approaches to feeding cannot be applied to every killer whale in the ocean. The variation in hunting capabilities, as well as the social behavior shown while hunting, however, reveals just one little glimpse into how intelligent these animals really are. Orcas are incredibly well built to tackle large prey animals, and given the sizes they can grow to, they need a great deal of meat to sustain themselves. These macro predators will take a wide range of marine mammals, which can range from seals and sea lions to whales and dolphins. To do this, they have developed some incredibly complex hunting methods. Larger animals, such as baleen whales, cannot be brought down easily, with simple bites and headbutts. And so an orca, or pod of orcas, will need to tire out its prey. Orcas have been recorded pursuing and killing animals as large as humpback, sperm, minke and grey whales, and in 3 recorded instances have even taken blue whales as prey. To exhaust a large prey item, orcas will relentlessly pursue their quarry for what can be up to hours at a time, depending on the size of the target. Swimming through open oceans for this long consumes much more effort than you might think for a large whale, and orcas have evolved to exploit that. Along the way, they will use their huge energy reserves to attack as part of a pod, ramming, headbutting, jumping on top of, and biting their target to tire it out quicker. Eventually, the pursued whale will be able to swim no longer, forcing it to sink into the waves where it will drown, if it doesn't succumb to bleeding damage from orca bites first. Of course, there is no guarantee that a hunt will be successful on something as large and heavy as, say, a sperm whale, which are capable of powerful bites and painful tail swipes themselves. Arctic whales such as narwhals and belugas are often trapped by orcas who target them when they become stuck in isolated pools surrounded by thick sea ice. Here there is little room for their prey to swim away, especially when surrounded by multiple orcas working as a group. Pinnipeds, such as seals and sea lions, will be tackled in a different manner. These animals can be extremely agile and can deliver quick, painful bites to an orca, which can be particularly dangerous if a wound is sustained in a vulnerable area such as the face or flippers. As such, a killer whale going for a seal will often try and knock it out or severely wound it. before making the kill. You may have seen this on wildlife documentaries. It's the classic scene of the orca seemingly playing with its food before it consumes it, batting it around with its huge tail flukes or repeatedly ramming it to disable the target. Seals and sea lions have the distinct advantage of being able to leave the water, but even this doesn't deter a hungry orca. Killer whales in South America have been recorded purposefully beaching themselves to pursue animals as large as southern elephant seals on land, where they will then drag themselves, and their catch, back into the water to feed. In the Antarctic, orcas use the waves created by their movement through the water's surface to knock seals from ice floes. As they fall into the water, the animal becomes vulnerable to attack, and the orca can move in for the kill. When hunting marine mammals, orcas will typically disable or stun their catch first, before giving it to the young in the pod to finish off, to help teach them their hunting techniques. Killer whales are also keen hunters of fish, and many species have been recorded falling prey to the apex predators. Herring, salmon, cod, halibut, and cartilaginous fish, such as skates and rays, are common food for orcas, but several of the former species often travel as part of a huge shoal. Safety can be offered in numbers. Orcas in Norway have, however, found a way around this too. Killer whales will usually act as part of a pod when hunting fish shoals, in a technique called carousel feeding. First, the orcas will corral the fish into a tightly packed ball of fast-moving silvery scales, which can limit the escape opportunities afforded to the shoal. They confuse the fish by flashing their bright white patterns, or by producing streams of bubbles to limit their prey's vision. Once they have the fish where they want them, orcas will take turns to smash their tail flukes into the heart of the ball, stunning the fish throughout it, which can then be quickly consumed. In the tropic, orcas have been recorded hunting and killing what many would consider to be the apex predators of the sea: sharks. Species as big as powerful as great whites and as big as whale sharks are hunted by pods of orcas, who typically herd them to the surface before smashing them with powerful blows from their tails. Bottom-dwelling cartilaginous fish, such as carpet sharks, eagle rays, and stingrays, can be pinned to the ground and brought to the surface once immobilized. The great white shark is one of the only animals that can deter an orca, although they have been hunted on occasion by particularly voracious individual orcas without the help of a pod. In many areas, these sharks will compete with orcas for food and can readily defend themselves in most scenarios. As is the case with many cetacean species, killer whales are communicative, social animals and have expressed a high degree of intelligence. Their social groups are famed for their intricate structures, comparable to those seen in great apes such as chimpanzees and gorillas. Again, social structure and behavior can differ from population to population, and killer whales living in different parts of the world have been observed engaging in different activities and social habits. In parts of the world, killer whales will form family groups where the offspring of an orca will remain traveling with, or in close proximity to, its mother for its entire life. Some of these groups are multi-generational, led by the eldest female in the pod. Some of these pods can be made up of multiple family groups that share dialects in their vocalizations and behaviors as part of a small community. When they reach maturity, males may leave their pod to mate with females from other communities to avoid problems associated with inbreeding. Pods can either be resident, staying in a location for a long time, or transient, traveling throughout the world's oceans. Transient pods are typically smaller than resident ones, and some transient orcas may go it alone. Over the course of an orca's life, it will spend time seeking out and hunting food, traveling from location to location to do so. They are very complex, intelligent beings and will also engage in what seem to be recreational activities. Most recently, images of orcas in the Puget Sound were circulated on the internet showing the cetaceans balancing dead salmon on their heads, wearing them almost like a human would wear a hat. The exact reasons why the orcas did this is unknown, but it could be genuine evidence of a cultural phenomenon in a species that is not our own. It's happened more than once. Orcas were first spotted with salmon hats in the late 1980s, and it has now, quite literally, resurfaced. If not for recreational purposes, then it could be a way of showing other orcas that food is readily available in a certain region, which is remarkable in its own right. Behavior that does indicate play or recreation can be seen in orcas breaching out of the waves together, poking their heads out of the water's surface, playing with buoys and boats out at sea, and even hunting for practice or for fun. These are all great indicators of just how intelligent these animals are. Orcas have the second heaviest brain among marine mammals after the sperm whale, but are unique in their brain's abundance of grey matter and nerve cells. They actually have more of the latter in their heads than we do in ours, as well as having their own unique dialects of whistles, clicks and calls that differ from community to community. They have been recorded imitating one another, which may be a way of teaching younger orcas how to communicate. Killer whales have been seen taking fishermen's catches from their long lines, safely for the most part, to the point where fishermen have had to change their technique. Orcas have subsequently adapted to still steal their catches, even after the fishermen try a different approach. Killer whales can be found in the historical record dating back thousands of years. Indigenous peoples of North America frequently included them in their pantheons and mythologies, and figures resembling orcas have been found in the art of the Haida people of coastal Canada. Some groups, such as the Kwakiutl, regarded killer whales as the kings of the seas, who used dolphins as warriors and sea lions for workers. The souls of past chiefs were thought to become killer whales in the next life, and they held important religious significance. Other tribes, such as the Lummi of the western United States, equate killer whales to human beings, referring them to our relations under the waves. Perhaps they were the first to recognize their true intelligence. In Australia, amongst the Thawa people, killer whales were not just animals, but trusted hunting companions. They would help indigenous hunters to herd marine mammals and fish into shallow waters accessible to the Thawa, where they could be killed easily. In exchange for their help, some of the carcass would be offered to the orcas. In the wild, as long as human history stretches back, there are no recorded killings by orcas on humans. The same cannot be said for individuals in captivity, but we will cover this later in the video. As history has progressed, orcas have come into increasing contact with humans, who, further into modern times, have exploited their homes for financial gain. European cultures initially feared orcas, with the first written account, by Roman author and naturalist Pliny the Elder, stating in AD 70 that orcas, the appearance of which no image can express other than an enormous mass of savage flesh with teeth, are the enemy of other whale species. They charge and pierce them like warships ramming. As civilization progressed and humans headed into the modern world, killer whales' habit of stealing fish catches saw them perceived as pests, and the killing of them was encouraged in some regions of the world. One of the worst offenders is the US Navy, who stated they intentionally killed hundreds of killer whales in the North Atlantic in modern times, with guns, rockets, and explosives. Whaling throughout the 18th and 19th centuries took a huge toll on orca populations, which was carried through to the 20th century. Japan and Norway are particularly ravenous in their pursuit of killer whales, and thousands have been hauled up from the waves in recent decades by harpoons and large-scale commercial whaling vessels. Thankfully, in recent years, many communities have stopped seeking killer whales out as hunting quarries, but the whales remain affected by pollution and oil spills in their home waters, which can greatly affect the numbers of available prey items and spread harmful chemicals to these graceful marine hunters. Recent decades have also seen the rise of a hot topic in the animal welfare world: the capture, breeding, and display of killer whales in wildlife parks and aquariums across the world. Awareness of this topic has been made very public by documentaries such as the 2013 film Blackfish, which tells the story of SeaWorld's captive orcas. While zoos and wildlife parks, when run with conservation at their focus, can be excellent places to keep populations of animals strong, cetaceans do not benefit from them. Whales and dolphins are intelligent and need vast stretches of water to be able to exercise, hunt, and develop their intellectual abilities. There is simply not enough stimulation afforded to them by a concrete pool, and there is evidence to back this up. Captive killer whales usually develop conditions such as dorsal fin collapse, extreme stress, and can become highly aggressive to other orcas and humans. One orca, named Tilikum, who was held at SeaWorld from 1992 until he passed away in 2017, killed 3 humans, something quite literally unheard of in wild orcas. While SeaWorld have stated in 2016 that they will stop breeding orcas and will end their animal performances, their shows are still going strong today. It remains to be seen whether or not this cruelty will continue, and time will tell. Whales and dolphins have one of the most fascinating evolutionary stories amongst all mammals. They are 1-2 mammal groups that spend their entire lives in the water, the other being mammals of the order Sirenia, which includes manatees and dugongs. Few terrestrial vertebrate groups have made a complete transition back to the waves, and the whales did indeed evolve from small, land-dwelling mammals. It might surprise you to learn that cetaceans are technically ungulates, or hoofed mammals. Their closest living relatives are hippopotamuses, and the first true whales were not the gargantuan sea creatures we know today, but small, deer-like animals living in West Asian forests. The story of the killer whale then can be traced back to around 50 million years, in a geological epoch known as the Eocene. The dinosaurs had gone extinct around 14 million years prior, and the world was a warm, recovering one, draped in subtropical and temperate forests. This was a world of small animals, where lemur-like climbers jumped through the treetops, pursued by diminutive carnivores that looked similar to modern cats. The first animal known on the cetacean evolutionary tree is Indoheus, which to those new to natural history could easily be mistaken for a large rat or a small deer. With a long tail, slender, hoofed legs, and a rodent-like visage, Indoheus, roughly the size of a raccoon, could be found near streams amidst the woodlands surrounding the ancient Himalayas. It lived 50 million years ago in what is today northern India, and likely already showed adaptations for taking to an aquatic lifestyle. Their bones were dense to help reduce buoyancy, which may have helped these animals hide in the water when threatened by a terrestrial predator. 2 million years later, the whales had begun to diversify and took on different forms entirely. Around this time, in what is today Pakistan, we start to see the rise of true cetaceans, such as Pachycetus. Still only semi-aquatic, likely covered in fur, and with a long snout full of sharp teeth for catching fish, Pachycetus resembled a fox with a long snout and shorter ears. Soon after, whales would grow much larger and would spend more time in the water. Ambulocetus, a much larger early whale with the size and vague shape of a crocodile, may have been a semi-aquatic ambush hunter. Whales were not yet equipped to take to the seas permanently, but that time was fast approaching. The first fully aquatic ancestors of the killer whale were either the protocetids or the basilosaurids, and more research is needed to determine the exact species and time that this took place in. In the protocetids, limbs become smaller, with broad, webbed digits that allowed them to swiftly push themselves through coastal waters. They would have resembled bizarre amalgamations of crocodilians and hippopotamuses, with species such as Edgecetus and Georgicetus having spread out to North Africa and North America respectively. The basilosaurids were the first true giants amongst the whales, and were definitely fully aquatic. Some, such as the 20-metre, or 66 foot long, Basilosaurus, were objectively apex predators, feeding on animals as large as sharks and other whales. One Basilosauridae, known from the Eocene of Peru, Perucetus, was recently discovered and thought to rival the blue whale as the largest animal ever to evolve. But estimations have now been reduced to 17 meters, or 55 feet. Delphinidae, the family containing the killer whale, has been around since the late Oligocene or possibly Miocene epoch, which happened when cetaceans began to adapt and radiate into all kinds of shapes and sizes in response to different food sources. They evolved at around the same time as the baleen whales, who adapted filter feeding techniques, consuming invertebrates such as krill with massive baleen plates in their mouths. The oceanic dolphins, however, were much more agile, typically smaller animals, that were adapted to acrobatically pursuing fish through open and coastal seas. Some of the first true dolphins, and likely ancestral to the killer whale, were the kentriodonts, who would have been clearly recognizable as dolphins and not whales. Some early dolphins would evolve unique feeding techniques, such as semirostrum, which had a greatly elongated lower jaw, double the length of the upper, which may have been used to probe the seabed for shellfish. The genus Orcas, containing the killer whale, arose during the Miocene. Modern orcas evolved during the Pliocene and would have shared the world's waters with apex predators such as Leviathan, the giant sperm whale, and Otodus megalodon, the giant predatory shark. Orcas orca was not the only member of its genus throughout prehistory, however, and following the Miocene, 3 additional species are known. The oldest and possibly first member of the genus was Oceanus meyeri, of which 18 teeth and 2 jaw fragments are known, discovered in the alpine town of Stokach in Germany. It would have lived in a coastal tidal basin with strong currents and seems to have been a hunter of small to medium-sized fish. It was not as large as modern killer whales, who seem to have grown progressively into apex predators as time has gone on. Orcas cetoniensis was next, which evolved during the Pliocene and lived in what are today the coastal waters of the British Isles. This species may have been a transitional one between archaic dolphins and modern orcas, and it seems to have been adapted to hunting larger fish than Orcas meyeri. The latest non-modern species known to science is Orcas paleorca, which lived as recently as 1 million to 700,000 years ago. It seems to have been a hunter of large fish as well, but may not have had the size advantage or adaptations to hunt animals such as whales or other marine mammals. Modern orcas, Orcas orca, seem to have been the first species capable of acting as apex predators in their environment, and may have evolved as a response to dwindling numbers of other apex predators, such as large sharks and toothed whales, in the seas towards the end of the Cenozoic era. The killer whale is one of the most iconic and charismatic cetaceans in our oceans, and it's only natural that this would attract modern humans with an interest in wildlife to want to view them in their natural habitats. As is the case with many ecotourism hobbies and attractions, it depends where you are and which organisation's tours you undertake. Whale watching as an industry is constantly growing and does support communities across the world by creating jobs and income for those who need them. Countries such as New Zealand, for example, have been known to bring in as many as 800,000 whale watchers per year, completely transforming communities with financial support. Tourists undertaking responsible whale watching tours to see orcas are often provided with education on how to keep our oceans safe and clean, and having seen orcas up close in the wild, may be willing to lead more conservation-aware lifestyles going forward, encouraging their own communities to do so when they return home. As well as providing an excellent opportunity for responsible tourists, whale watching can increase scientific understanding of our seas and the orcas that reside in them. Scientists and wildlife charities can enhance their knowledge on cetacean populations, behaviour, distribution and more, which can be great in turn to help us understand how to protect these animals. Whale watching tours to the Antarctic, for example, can provide researchers with access to remote areas where humans rarely travel, to see the whales in relatively unaltered environments. The downside of wildlife tourism, however, is that it can rarely be absolutely guaranteed to be responsible. At the core of evolution, humans are a land-dwelling species, and huge tourism boats are not natural constructs. It is hard for the whales to be completely undisturbed when a huge, noisy boat full of photographers and tourists is travelling through their territories. Orcas themselves have been recorded changing up their swimming patterns, perhaps to either conceal themselves from view or to deter the vessels from entering their waters. There are also the dangers of carbon emissions caused by boats, potential litter dropped by tourists on board the vessel into the water, or the chance of the cetaceans themselves being struck by boats in the water. As whales and dolphins are such long-lived animals, it can be hard to measure the impact that whale watching has on populations of orcas over time, but in the future, scientists may be able to gain a better understanding. Hopefully, whale watching, specifically responsible iterations of it, can be a net positive, and we can learn more about the whales and their lifestyles through it. But any human activity in an environment can be enough to cause a disturbance to native animals. We may just have to wait and see in this case. There are few animals quite like the killer whale, and we don't often associate high intelligence with animals that live in the seas and oceans of our world. But they are without a doubt some of the most personable and intellectually bright organisms on Earth. They work together to hunt, they exhibit play behaviors, they imitate and learn from one another, and they may even have a basic form of culture if some biologists are right. There would be few greater losses to our world than the absence of cetaceans from our seas, but this is a real possibility if change does not happen soon. To ensure that orcas and other marine mammals are with us for generations to come, there are a few things we can do to help. Limit or stop your purchasing of single-use plastics to ensure that harmful waste material does not end up in the sea, and perhaps consider picking up any litter or plastic you do see on the beach the next time you visit. When the tide comes in, that plastic bottle or crisp packet will be taken out to sea and may harm any sea creatures that come across it. If you eat fish and shellfish, be mindful about where they are sourced from. Although orcas have found a way around longline fishing, other cetaceans easily get caught up in them, which can have catastrophic effects on populations. You can also consider supporting charities that work to take care of our oceans and the cetaceans in them. Orca are the leading killer whale charity who helps safeguard these animals in the wild and protect the waters they are found in. They can be found at orca.org.uk. To help bring about the end of killer whales and other cetaceans in captivity, consider supporting the Born Free Foundation, who campaign and advocate for killer whales and other large animals trapped in inadequate conditions. They can be found at bornfree.org.uk.